the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the Space Marines are humanity's ultimate protectors. Genetically enhanced superhuman warriors, they're capable of taking on anything the galaxy can throw at them. Now in this video we're going to show you how to paint a Space Marine Primaris Captain, the one wearing Gravis armour that you get inside the Dark Imperium box set, and we're going to do him in the colours of the Ultramarines. The method we're going to show you is fantastic for getting your miniatures on the tabletop quickly, and also really cool if you're a beginner as well. And using the methods and colours in this video you'll be able to paint the entire Ultramarines army that you get inside this box set. So without further ado, let's get to it. In this video we're going to be concentrating on painting just one miniature, but what I recommend you do for painting your army is paint all the miniatures in batches. And what I mean by that is you select as many miniatures as you want and then apply the first step to all of them, then move on to the second step and again apply it to all of them, and this way creating a kind of production line. Now this is the most efficient way of painting an army that there is, and you can make the batches as big or as small as you like, but what I find works really well is to paint an entire squad at once before you then move on to the next squad. But like I say, we are just going to be concentrating on one miniature for this video, though all the techniques are the same to paint any Ultramarine in the box. Now the first thing that you need to do is undercoat your miniature, and then you need to paint it with Macragge Blue. Luckily there is a spray of Macragge Blue which does both these steps at once, which is exactly what we've done with our example miniature here. But if you do want to paint that Macragge Blue on by hand, just be sure to undercoat your miniature with Chaos Black first of all. Now the first thing we need to do after this is apply some shade to the miniature to give it some depth, and the shade to use here is Drakenhof Nightshade. Now Drakenhof Nightshade is a very strong colour, so what I'm going to do is dilute it with Lamia Medium. What Lamia Medium is shade with essentially no colour in it, so by mixing it with another shade, what you do is dilute that shade without changing its properties so it'll still dry nice and smoothly. So I want to make a 50-50 mix here, and I'm going to be doing it using a medium shade brush, and what you want to do is get a brush full and apply it to a palette like this so you can, well, mix it on the palette. So a good amount there, and then be sure to wash your brush before you get any medium on it because you don't want to contaminate it with any colour. So we want a roughly equal amount, so a brush full there, put them next to each other and then mix them together like that. So you're looking to get your mix kind of looking like that before you start applying it to your miniature. And once it's ready, all you got to do is start painting it all over your power armour. On the smoother, flatter areas you want to keep it nice and even so it's not blobbing up anywhere, but try and get it to settle in all the recessed detail to help that detail jump out nicely there like that. And once you apply this all over, give your miniature about an hour to dry. If you are painting in a batch, this is a great opportunity to then move on to the next miniature, and by the time you get back to your first miniature again, it'll be dry and ready for the next step. The shade is now completely dry, and you can see it settled nicely in that recessed detail, helping it stand out and giving the miniature lots of depth. And with that done, we're now ready to start base coating in some other details in the miniature. And the first of these we're going to do is all the gold details, and for this the colour we need is Retributor Armour. Now this is for all the decorative stuff, so you're looking at the shoulder pad trim, any skulls, wings, anything like that you can find on the miniature. There's lots of reference material for this on the back of the box, and in fact inside the box too. So if you're not sure which bits to paint out, then just check those images out. But for this what you need is a medium layer brush, and it's a good idea to have a small layer brush on hand as well, because some of these details are very small. And what you need to do is just get some of this paint onto your palette like this, and then add a little bit of water into the mix. You don't need loads, just a small amount to help the paint be a little bit smoother and flow easier. You want to be about this sort of consistency before you start applying it to the miniature. Make sure you don't have too much paint on your brush as well. You don't want to put on too much at once so you don't lose control of it. And when you're ready, all you got to do is start applying this over these details. So I'm going to start on the shoulder pad trim here, just being as neat as I can around that blue. The first coat you apply, you'll notice, will be a little bit transparent. Now that's not a problem, just let it dry, then apply a second coat in the same way, and this way you'll get a much stronger finish to the colour and you'll keep it nice and smooth as well. And if you do happen to make any mistakes and get it onto some blue parts where you don't want it to be, then just let it dry and neaten it with Macragge Blue before you move on. Once you finish base coating all that gold, we're ready to move on to the next colour. This will be all the silver parts for which you need lead belch to base coat them with. And for this we're looking at things like the ammo belt on the gun and a few details on the gun as well, the sword blade, there's a few other little details scattered around too. But for all of these you'll need to start out with your medium layer brush once more, and still have that small layer brush on hand because you will need it on some of the smaller parts. So as before, put some of the paint onto your palette, then add a little bit of water in there to thin it down so it's just a little bit smoother. So you want about that sort of consistency, and once you're ready, all you've got to do is start base coating these details. Now this time I'm going to start on the sword, and as before, once you apply this first coat, if you can still see some blue showing through, just let the silver dry and apply a second thin coat in exactly the same way. I've finished applying the lead belcher now. You can see to the sword, the gun, and also there's quite a lot of silver detail there on the backpack. And with all that done, we're now ready to move on to the next base colour. And in fact, we've got 3 more base colours that we need to add, and all 3 are applied using the same method. So we're going to run through them quickly for you now. We're going to start out with Screamer Pink, and this is for the back of the cloak and also the wax of the purity seals. And then we're going to move on to Xandri Dust, and this is for the inside of the cloak and also all the parchment on the purity seals. Finally, we'll be using Abaddon Black, and this is for some detail on the gun and also all the joints in the armour. But we're going to be starting out with Screamer Pink, once again using both a medium layer and a small layer brush. And again, use your palette to get the paint thinned down so that's nice and smooth and that you've got lots of control over it. You want it to be about that sort of consistency before you start applying it. And when you're ready, all you've got to do is start applying this onto these areas. So I'm going to begin on the back of the cloak, and again, I'm going to be applying 2 thin coats. Once you've finished applying the Screamer Pink, we're ready to move on to Xandri Dust, and this is for the inside of the cloak and also all the parchment on the purity seals. And again, you'll need to apply 2 thin coats with this colour. And once you're finished with Xandri Dust, we're now ready to move on to Abaddon Black, and this is for the gun casing and also all the joints in the armour. Again, switching between a small layer and medium layer brush as you need to. Now that we've finished applying all those base colours, we're ready to shade them just like we did with the armour, only this time we're going to use Agrax Earth Shade, which we don't need to dilute. It's going to be good straight out the pot for this one. And I'm going to be applying it with a medium layer and small layer brush once again, because this time we need much more control over where exactly the shade goes. And if you put on too much at once, it's quite easy to lose control of it. So be sure to use your palette to help control that. You don't want to have loads on your brush at once. Use the palette just to gauge it, so you want about that much there. And when you're ready, you paint this over everything except for the blue armour. So I'm going to start on this wing design we've got on the front of the armour here, and as you apply it, you want it to settle in all the recessed detail, just like it's doing there, like that. And once you've done this all over, give this plenty of time to dry once again. About half an hour is good when you're using it in smaller quantities like this. Another thing to shade as you're doing this is the eye lenses there. Just paint a small amount of it into the eyes, just to darken them down for later on. With that shade dry, we're now very close to finishing off the miniature, but we do need to return to 2 of the base colours we applied previously just to brighten them up a little bit, because the shade has dulled them down quite a lot. So what we're going to do is go back to Screamer Pink first of all, and then Xandri Dust, and both of these we're going to be applying in the same kind of way. I'm going to be using a medium layer and small layer brush once again, but starting with Screamer Pink, what you want to do this time is apply it with a bit more control than previously. So as before, use your palette to thin the paint down so it's nice and smooth, but as you apply it this time, you want to avoid all the recessed details in the areas that you previously painted with Screamer Pink. So for example, the cloak here, you can see how the shade settled in those recessed areas there, so we want to keep that darker. All I'm going to do is focus this on the tops of these creases here like this to make them a bit brighter there, because this way I'm getting a nice gradient between the lighter colour there and the darker colour there, really emphasising the cloak and giving it lots more depth. And once you finish that, you're ready to move on to Xandri Dust, for which we're going to do exactly the same thing for all the details you painted previously using Xandri Dust. With that done, we're now ready to paint a small detail, and that is the eyes of our Space Marine. And for this, what you need is Evilson Scarlet and a small layer brush. And this part is all about having lots of control, really. So you must use your palette to help with that. Get some of the paint on there and then thin it down as normal, but you've got to be sure not to have too much of this paint on your brush. You don't want to overload it, otherwise it will go everywhere over the eyes. So make sure you don't have a lot of the paint on your brush, but that's flowing easily. And when you're ready, all you need to do is paint a line of this colour in the centre of the eye lens. So just hold your hands as steady as possible and just gently paint in that line there like that. With those eyes painted, we now just have one more thing left to do, and that is paint the base of our miniature. And for this, we're going to use the texture paint Agrellan Badland, and I'm going to be applying it using one of these texture spreading tools. And what you do is use the shovel side just to get a scoop of the paint there like that, and then on your base you just need to find an open spot. So the front is perfect for this, and all you do is apply it down like that and start using the tool just to manipulate it around the base, switching to the narrow side as you get close to the feet of your miniature. Now once you've finished applying this, you just need to let it dry, give it about an hour to be completely dry before you move on, and at that point you just need to paint the edge of the base, and for this I'm going to use Abaddon Black. Also be sure to clean the texture tool once you've finished using it with just a small piece of tissue. And here we have our completed Ultramarine Primaris Space Marine Captain wearing Gravis armour, ready to hit the tabletop and lead his men into battle. Now in this video we showed you a fantastic method of painting your miniatures quickly to get them ready for battle, and if you're going to paint your models like this, what I recommend you do is paint them in batches, because doing so is the most efficient way of getting an army ready for battle. Now the things to remember when you're painting this particular style is that when you do that all over shade on the armour at first, just keep an eye on it as it settles on the armour. You don't want it to pool anywhere on flatter panels, but you do want it to settle nicely in the recessed details, and of course be sure it's completely dry before you move on to the next step. Now when you do start putting your other colours onto the miniature, just remember to be as neat as you can, and it's always best to apply 2 thin coats rather than 1 thick coat, because doing so will get you a smoother result in the end. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope you have fun painting your Ultramarines army and getting it on the tabletop as well, and we'll see you all again very soon.